Welcome to another episode. Today we'll delve into the events that shaped the history of Mexico and United States of America. We will be discussing the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which marked the end of the Mexican-American War and established the border between the United States and Mexico. Let's jump into the history. The Mexican-American War was a conflict that lasted from 1846 to 1848 between the United States and Mexico. The war was caused by a combination of factors, including territorial disputes, economic interests, and cultural tensions. One of the main causes of the war was a dispute over the border between Texas and Mexico. Texas had won its independence from Mexico in 1836, but Mexico still considered it a part of its territory. When the United States annexed Texas in 1845, it sparked a border dispute that eventually led to the outbreak of war. Another cause of the war was American economic interests in California and the Southwest. American settlers and business interests saw the fertile lands and abundant natural resources of California as an opportunity for expansion, and they sought to secure control of these territories. Cultural tensions also played a role in the causes of the war. American expansionists believed that American culture and values were superior to those of Mexico, and they saw the Mexican government as corrupt and ineffective. This cultural arrogance fueled American aggression towards Mexico, and ultimately led to the outbreak of war. The causes of the Mexican-American War were complex and interrelated, and they reflected the political, economic, and cultural tensions that were present in both the United States and Mexico during the mid-19th century. These factors contributed to the outbreak of the Mexican-American War in 1846, and the subsequent signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 marked the end of the conflict and established the border between the United States and Mexico. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed on February 2, 1848, marked the end of the Mexican-American War and the beginning of a new era in the relationship between the United States and Mexico. The treaty consisted of several key provisions that shaped the future of both nations. One of the key provisions of the treaty was the transfer of territory from Mexico to the United States. Mexico ceded a large portion of its territory, including present-day California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, Wyoming, and parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Nevada to the United States. This transfer marked a significant expansion of American territory and was a key factor in the westward expansion of the United States. Another key provision of the treaty was the protection of Mexican citizens in the territories ceded to the United States. The treaty guaranteed that Mexican citizens would be protected in their property and religious rights, and that they would be given the option to either remain in the territories or return to Mexico. However, these provisions were not always honored, and Mexican citizens faced discrimination and exploitation in their new country. The third provision of the treaty dealt with the payment of compensation from the United States to Mexico. The United States agreed to pay Mexico $15 million in exchange for the cession of territory. This payment was intended to help Mexico recover from the financial losses it had suffered during the war, and it was seen as a way of making peace between the two nations. The fourth provision of the treaty dealt with the resolution of boundary disputes between the two countries. The treaty established a permanent boundary between the United States and Mexico, and it set up a commission to oversee any future disputes that might arise. This provision was important in establishing a stable and secure border between the two countries, and it helped to prevent any further conflict in the future. The treaty also had a profound impact on the native populations in the territories ceded to the United States. Native tribes were forced to cede their lands and relocate to reservations, resulting in the loss of their traditional way of life and the decline of their populations. Despite these challenges, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo helped to improve diplomatic relations between the United States and Mexico. The two nations were able to resolve their disputes peacefully, and this improved relationship helped to lay the foundation for future diplomatic efforts. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo had a significant impact on both the United States and Mexico. The treaty marked a significant expansion of American territory and marked the beginning of American westward expansion. This expansion allowed for the settlement of new territories and the growth of the American economy. Mexican citizens who lived in the territories ceded to the United States were forced to adapt to a new culture and way of life. Many lost their property and were forced to leave their homes. The treaty's provisions to protect their rights were not always honored, and they faced discrimination and exploitation in their new country. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo had a profound impact on the native populations in the territories ceded to the United States. Many native tribes were forced to cede their lands and relocate to reservations. This resulted in the loss of their traditional way of life and the decline of their populations. The treaty helped to improve diplomatic relations between the United States and Mexico, as the two nations were able to resolve their disputes through peaceful means. This improved relationship was short-lived, however, as tensions between the two nations flared up again in the late 19th century. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo had a significant impact on both the United States and Mexico. For the United States, it marked the beginning of its territorial expansion and helped to establish it as a dominant power in the Western Hemisphere. For Mexico, it marked the loss of a significant portion of its territory and the forced migration of hundreds of thousands of its citizens. The treaty helped to establish a peaceful relationship between the United States and Mexico after years of conflict. Although the treaty caused significant losses for Mexico, it also helped to prevent any further military conflicts between the two countries. The treaty remains an important symbol of peace and cooperation between the two nations, and it continues to be celebrated by Mexican American communities. The treaty had a significant impact on the identity of Mexican Americans who lived in the territories that were ceded to the United States. The treaty ensured that these citizens would retain their property rights and would receive the full protection of American law. This helped to create a sense of security and stability for Mexican Americans, and it helped to shape the Mexican American identity. The treaty was instrumental in shaping the American West. The transfer of territory from Mexico to the United States allowed the United States to expand its borders and to claim new territories. This expansion was a key factor in the growth and development of the American West, and it helped to establish the United States as a powerful and influential nation. The treaty established a permanent boundary between the United States and Mexico, and it set up a commission to oversee any future disputes that might arise. This provision helped to establish a stable and secure border between the two countries, and it helped to prevent any future conflicts. Today, the United States-Mexico border remains a critical issue, and the legacy of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo continues to shape the relationship between the two nations. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo remains a relevant and important document in the history of the United States and Mexico. Despite its age, the treaty continues to have a significant impact on the relationship between the two nations and on the lives of Mexican Americans. In conclusion, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo remains a relevant and important document in the history of the United States and Mexico. Its legacy continues to shape the relationship between the two nations and the lives of Mexican Americans, and its provisions continue to be relevant in discussions about border security and Mexican American identity. We hope that you found this video informative and educational. If you enjoyed this episode of History Hub, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more historical content. And as always, we welcome your questions and feedback. Thank you for watching.